Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shana with Growthword Consulting, and I'm here with Denny Grimes, my partner, Kristan Cole, and James Hern out of Kansas City. Second of three panels, really talking about people have been through, the title of our thing is shift leaders. People have been through several shifts in the marketplace before, and really hearing their take on what's happening and getting a great view of people and how they're leading through it, knowing that it's something they've done before. We'll start with Denny. Denny, tell us just a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do.
You bet. Denny Grimes. I'm in Southwest Florida, which is defined as really Fort Myers and Naples. Been in real estate 40 years, seen many ups and downs in the market. In fact, had the proud award of being in Fort Myers when the bubble burst in 2005, 6, and 7. So we were one of the top three distressed markets, and the other two were Las Vegas and Phoenix, which I'm sure Kristan can talk about. So I've got my battle wounds.
Yeah, got your badges. Kristan, we'll go to you.
So yes, I'm here in Scottsdale today, and we counted it up yesterday, and this is my 7th shifting market since I started into real estate in 1984. From Alaska, my hub is up there in Alaska, and then we're in several cities across the US and very, very deep in Arizona, in many, many small towns and big towns.
Awesome. James.
I and my brother own the Hern Group based out of Kansas City. We do about 400 units out of this location, and we have a few other locations as well, scattered across the Midwest. And we are keeping our heads down and working hard and continuing to be very optimistic about what's coming, and just knowing that there's opportunity around the corner.
Awesome. And I, just a quick recap, I've been in real estate for over 25 years and listed and sold full time, definitely through the 2008 change in our market, and then moved into leadership and now coaching and training full time. And I get the honor of working with people all across the country that have been where we're going, and people that this is a complete mystery for. So I love that we can provide this value of, like, take a deep breath. We got this, and here's how. So thank you all for your time. Our first question, and anybody in the chat box as well, we do have Tegan Tanner, our fantastic consultant who's helping us in the chat box. So if you have anything, please put questions in the chat box and we will get to those before we're done. But I'm going to start, I'll start with Kristan and ask the first question. What's your top, there's so much noise out there. What is the top market indicator that you're looking at right now? What are you watching right now?
Well, there's a couple things, and others might disagree with me. However, I'm watching the GDP, I'm watching inflation, because the Fed really only has two choices to stem inflation: the cost of money and their policies. And right now, with high employment and people having money to spend, inflation isn't coming down like they thought it would. So as long as unemployment right now stays low, and it's so low right now, it's really called full employment, the Fed's going to continue to push rates up. And when they do, the number one industry that it affects is housing. So there's some of this that is controlled completely by the Fed. So I'm watching what the Fed is doing, what they're saying. I'm watching what the inflation rate is, because here's the thing, Shana, the bottom line is, if you're making over $150,000 a year, inflation at 8.2% probably isn't changing your life, meaning you're not having to make drastic changes. But if you're making $60,000 or $70,000 a year and you have a family, children, it's affecting you a lot. So the demand, don't kid yourself, the demand for housing is still there. But what most people have done is they've just set it to the side for now. And you see people still spending money because they have money. If you have people who are employed, who are making, over $75,000 each per husband and wife, they have money in the bank, and who's to say that they shouldn't spend it? Well, they are spending it. And so because they're spending it, the Fed's going, no, no, no. How do we get this? How do we get what they really want? They want to push it so hard that people lose their jobs. Well, what have we seen this past week? How many people did Redfin lay off? How many people did the mortgage industry lay off? How many people in tech have gotten laid off? So you're starting to see these massive layoffs, which this sounds terrible, but that's exactly what the Fed wants. They want layoffs. They want people to not have the money, so they stop spending. And they're not going to stop until they can get inflation under 4%. And ideally, they want it to 2%. Well, we have a long way to go from 8.2 to 2%. So I'm watching that like a hawk. My husband, who also is Denny Grimes, he'll tell you what he watches, but he watches a lot of the real estate specific numbers, which of course are important. But we have a very weird thing going on here where prices are not coming down to the extent that the Fed would have liked to have seen. And yet we've got inflation that it's at an all-time high. We have a lack of inventory and we have a lack of buyers, not demand. It's just they're not buying right now.
Right.
So that's the stuff I'm watching.
James, tell us what you're watching right now. What market indicators?
Some of the same of what Kristan is watching, and I'll go a step further, and I know she's doing this as well, but taking the time to actually meet with our advisors that are much better at reading some of those things than I am. And what I mean by that is I can't go in and read every graph that the government puts out pertaining to the GDP and the CPI and all of that. I can see what the numbers are. That's very, very easily done. However, when I sat down, Michael and I went and met with our financial advisor this last week, and we all know how much quantitative easing had helped our market over the past several years, and they kept doing it. Well, what they've been doing lately is what's called quantitative tightening, which is they're selling off everything that they purchased to the tune of $160 billion a month. Now, that has resulted in some of what we've seen with some of the rate hikes as well, and adding to the inflationary concerns. However, the good news, the silver lining in all of that, is that we have a Fed chair that actually puts in what we'll call a hard stop date. He only goes to a certain date. And by doing so, and he being our financial advisor, said he's never not done what he said he would do. When he hits that hard date, which is coming up very soon, that quantitative tightening will stop, then we'll start to see the markets turn a little bit. And year over year inflation, which is numbers that we like to watch, we should be seeing numbers that are coming out this month that are going to start looking a little different, because we're a year into this thing now. And so it starts giving you hope and something to talk about other than what's the best rate I can get. We can tell them that we're going to see things going the other direction. Now, things that we watch on a local basis, of course, the very first thing we all start seeing is showing activity. But we have some indicators that we're always watching. How many new listings are coming on? What are the days on market? Expireds, how many do we have? Pending sales, and how many price improvements? Those things all kind of giving us an indication of where we are locally, instead of just this national weather map, which doesn't help any of us to tell us what the average temperature is. Denny, I know, drills down on his location. My brother spends a lot of time doing that. I do as well. And those are the things that we're watching to help give us the right advice, the correct procedures, the correct, structure to be building for our clients, both selling and buying.
Awesome. Do you recall, James, when that date is? You said there's a date. Do you recall when that is?
It starts this month. It should be coming to a close this month, which also happens to be when the year over year numbers inflation wise should start to look better. They're anticipating, and this guy, I can't tell you some of the people that he does business with, but you would know their names, right? He's very good at what he does. And so I'm paying close attention to him on his 75-inch wall monitors that he's showing all of this stuff on that I don't understand. I came from the mortgage industry years ago and followed the candlesticks method and all of that. And through the last 10 years, pretty much all of that's been thrown out the window. You can't believe what used to be certainty at certain times. So we have to use, I've been in this business 27 years. Denny said he's been in this business 40 years. Kristan, somewhere in between. You've got to use the knowledge that you've accumulated during that time to help train your people, help train your clients as well as to what's coming. No one has a crystal ball, yet we can make assumptions based on all these pieces of the puzzle put together.
Sure. All right, Denny.
Well, I
Bring that
feel like
question home.
very inferior to answer the question after those guys. I tell you what, some people are numbers people, and when you buy a car, you get all the specifications, horsepower and cubic centimeters. I buy cars on color. Okay, so let me boil this down. If you're not a numbers person, let me give you some advice. Marry somebody who is, and hang around somebody who is. So that's James and my wife right there. I boiled it down to something, and they've all touched on it. However, for me, I made it very simple. You can walk in, we do a lot of flying. My wife's a pilot. I don't know if James has done any flying. I'm a pilot. And you can look at a very complex jet cockpit, and there's tons of things, dials and things. However, every airplane has three primary instruments. There's three things to watch in real estate. All of those things you can watch that may affect these things. James mentioned one. That's a change in the sales year over year, the change in the median sales price year over year. Those things are lagging indicators. You're reading about Tom Brady's comeback on Monday morning, right? So the leading indicator is the change in inventory. So if you only had 5 minutes while you're brushing your teeth, and I can go in and my MLS prints this out. I can do it on a monthly basis for 5 years or 10 years. When we log into our MLS, we have a widget. It's called Market Watch right in the front page. And we can set it for 24-hour period or 7-day periods. Just look at one thing, the number of new listings coming on the market versus the number of pendings that are going on the market. And when you see listings stacking up and pendings going down, that basically is signaling inventory is growing. That can lead, doesn't necessarily can lead into downward pressure on price. And the only other thing I would add to that is going back to the national weather map that James was talking about. I don't care where your market is, that is also too broad. You need to segment it by price range or maybe geography. There's waterfront, there could be condos, there could be single family. Whatever your marketplace is, I can show you, and I'll zoom in with you and I'll show you how in 10 minutes you can be what Gary says, a local economist of choice. And we'll let the smart people worry about quantitative easing and whatever. I just know that when I tighten my belt, I feel better. And when I have to put a new hole in my belt, I don't feel so good. So I don't know if that has anything to do with quantitative stuff. So that's my blink on it, guys.
Well, I love the conversation because it talks about, I think I've been saying all year, we have to understand if we're going to advise people and we're going to be skilled in our trade, we have to understand the global economy to some degree, right? We have to be able to speak to it. We're probably not going to go stand in front of our clients and talk about quantitative easing, but it does give us the confidence to understand it at some level. But then as we're serving our clients and customers, knowing at a hyper local level, how can we adequately advise people as they move forward? So I think it's all three of them are a great conversation. Okay, Denny, I'm gonna stick with you because you gave such great insight on really looking at the leading indicators in your hyper local market, to use that term. Knowing that, how are you projecting 2023? What's your thought process around projecting for 2023 right now in your business? Okay,
so understand, I don't make predictions anymore. And what I've learned, I use a different word when you listen to Kristan and James talk about, even Gary Keller, he's not making a prediction. He's making what is the word I'm looking for? He's making he'll say, this is where I'm anticipating the market going. I have a program. I'm part of a program every year. It's the biggest real estate event of its kind in the area. We just had our first meeting. And interest rates are going in the wrong direction to have the number of home sales increase. So if interest rates are at 7% or whatever, and there's still upward pressure, that's not going to give you a year-over-year change, an increase. I mean, it may give you a negative, a decrease. One thing though that I think it's really important is that you go back and do not use 2020 and 2021 as your year-over-year comparisons, because those were the best years in the real estate history. In our area, 2019 was our best rational year. So what I'm doing, Shana, is I'm comparing our monthly sales or our median, not the price, but the monthly sales to 2019. We're not going to have 2021 repeat itself again. And so every time the media does, it shows a negative number, which leads buyers to think, okay, I'm going to wait until the market crashes. I'll buy one, get one free. So I think we're going to see falling numbers because the environment's not there. I don't think, and I agree with Kristan, I don't think there is a demand issue. That will be an affordability issue. Now we're dealing in Southwest Florida, specifically where I am, Hurricane Ian. So we're a little bit different. However, that does suggest the fact you guys have to know what's going on in your specific market more so than what's going on nationally.
Mm-hmm. Kristan or James, who wants to follow that one up? Go ahead, James. Yeah. How are you projecting for 2023 or leading into 2023?
Sorry, I was muted there. So we're focusing on skills and everyone honing those skills. I think we talked about that a little bit last month, but we're also paying attention to conversion rates, because the one thing, Kristan and I just got back from Mastermind with Gary Keller, and conversion rates are what are really changing. And what we're all teaching and coaching to is that we need to be talking to more people. And that's kind of a no-brainer in this situation. Yet it's what will, in the end, if you're the one doing more talking, you're going to do better. And once you've gained all that ground, you're never going to give it back. So if you were originally talking to 20 folks in a day and now you're talking to 40, it's probably going to, swimming upstream is going to give you about the same outcome. So we're working with our agents to get better, have better conversations, have better skills in what they're conversation structure of what they're talking about, and bringing them information that is timely and the market of the moment. And as we all see, as we've seen over the past couple months, it's kind of changing, if not daily, for sure every week. It's a little different. And so we need to be taking a different approach to that and giving them more information. We are planning on the next month being pretty tough, right? And potentially January being pretty tough. However, we're cautiously optimistic that things are gonna, and what I mean by things is that rates are gonna eventually tap out. I believe, based on what the Fed has said, that they will raise rates at least one more time, maybe twice. And there's talk of maybe there's a little surprise that maybe they're not going to do that. Maybe it's slowing things down enough. However, looking at the numbers and the charts that we're all following, it hasn't fallen quick enough. So we'll see what happens there. But being skills-based, tightening your standards on yourself. If you work by yourself, hold yourself more accountable to what you're going to do on a daily basis. Because everyone that I literally put a couple deals together on at the airport yesterday, coming back, that were done. They had fallen through. Yet the folks came back around. We worked it all out. People that are buying, looking, selling right now, whatever they're doing, they need to do something. And as Kristan already alluded to, the demand's still there. It's not going away. So we have to find a way. We have to find a way. We have to get creative. We have to start using those mortgage hacks, the 2-1 buy downs, the ARMs, all the things that we haven't had to pull out of our utility belt for, a long time, maybe a decade, and start polishing those up, dusting those off, and teaching people about it. So we're just doing a lot more talking and conversing a lot more. And we are planning seller and buyer seminars. We're doing that physically, and we're also doing that online to get this information out, because they're not going to get it from the news media.
So
Be that
I-
expert.
Thank
so,
you.
Did you get that referral I sent to you on the way to the airport last night, James? I hope you did. By the way, Gary said some interesting things because he had his top, now you have to think of it. We have 180,000 people in Keller Williams. The top 200 agents that are individuals with a small team were there on the first day. Then his largest group, which is a group of about 250, which the GCI in that group, you have to close over 2.5 million to be in that group. Now, here's why I'm telling you that. How many people in that room knew what a 2-for-1 buy down is? How many people in that room knew what an adjustable rate mortgage was? Gary said less than a third. So if the agents don't know what an adjustable rate mortgage or a 2-for-1 buy down or a 5-for-1 buy down or a temporary buy down versus a permanent, do you think buyers do? So even if we understand
that shocks me that people, that
right,
shocks
so
me.
even if you as an agent understand it, can you articulate it in a way that means something to a buyer? And it's not going to be, hey, let me tell you about a 2-for-1 buy down. But it might be, hey, let me tell you about this house that now qualifies for a 2% interest rate reduction. Do you see the difference?
Mm-hmm.
So what he said was this, and I'm going to read you a couple of notes I took because I thought they were so critical to this whole conversation. Just because there is less business being done doesn't mean there's less opportunity for you. Then he went on to say, you're going to probably do less business for a period of time, and how long is up to you. It's just a mathematical formula. You guys hear me say this all the time. The path is in the math. And he said, but here's the thing. If you create a 5-year plan, here's what I want my goals to average over the next 5 years. Think of dollar cost averaging. He said, yeah, when you look over that 5-year period, 2023, when you look at it, it's going to not look pretty. It's going to suck. But he said, when you look at the 5-year average, as long as you keep doing what you need to be doing right now, it will look great. You will hit your goals. So what does that mean? Well, he said, conversion rates, as James said, are going to be different this next year. How many leads into your business? How do you need to make up for the change in the conversion rates being lower? And he said there will be this will be the way it is for a period of time. And he said time is going to be your problem. You're going to have to do more. You're going to have to spend more time on connecting with people. And he said, and if you're not willing to, then you're going to make less money, or you're going to go get a job. But if you're willing to do it right now, most people think if I triple down right now, my results are going to be triple. No, they're not. What he said was you might stay even, maybe. But when the market shifts, meaning buyers either figure out this is the new normal, so I better buy, or interest rates come down and because the demand is still there and they come back into the market, you're going to win. And he says that when you look at that combined with maybe 2023 not being so pretty, you're going to hit your 5-year goal. It's just not going to look straight up. It's like, this is going to be a bump in the road. And he said, it's up to you whether or not you want to take territory, but the territory isn't taken right now. The territory is taken when you come out. And people have to be willing to put the work in, knowing that the result's going to show up. It's just not showing up today. But if I do the work, I've been in 7 distressed market. It does show up. So you just have to learn how to have the conversations and learn how to take what's going on with quantitative easing or with, all the other numbers and put it in a manner that buyers can understand. And Gary gave us a whole 3-ring binder. And there's a couple graphs in there that I think are the most perfect graphs on the planet to explain this to a buyer that's afraid to buy right now. I would just say that if you're willing to have more conversations right now, and you're just borrow on Gary's belief, don't believe me, borrow on Gary's belief, because it absolutely, oh, here we go. Here comes the folder. Yay. So there is the folder that he gave us yesterday. And I'm just going to show you a couple of graphs here real quickly, because I think it will help you see what we're talking about. This one right here. This is the graph of home prices since 1991. What does that look like to you guys? Is that
4%.
going up or down?
It's all up every year.
Right. But what about 2008, Shana?
Yeah,
2009, 2010, 11, 12. But do you guys get the point? Like if you're a buyer and you're going to live in that house for any length of time, the housing prices always go up over time. That's one of the best graphs on the planet that you should have in order to explain to a buyer why they might want to be buying right now. So, because look at this one. This is number of days on the market. You can't read it, but right now they're across the US, it's 19. 19 days on the market. So when you look at all of this, we have demand. Buyers are just waiting to see, is this going to be the new normal? Because what happens is they get used to the interest rate change and then they change it again 2 months later. Then they get scared again. And so when it either becomes the new normal and or when it finally comes down, one of the two will happen, obviously. That's when buyers will come back into the market because they have more money in the bank right now than they've ever had before. And the problem for the Fed is they want to spend it. And does anyone blame them? Does anyone blame somebody that might be at a place in their life that they actually might want to spend some of their hard-earned money that they made? Right. So right now across the US, we have 1.8 million homes on the market. So that was probably the most interesting graph I saw. And then this is one for the final one I'll show you. And this is housing starts. Do you think we might have a problem? That yellow line is how many housing starts we should have every year just to keep up with the increase in demand and population. And what you can see is the last 3 years we've been under it again. And this year, even more so. So not enough houses are being built. So what's that going to do to where's the opportunity when not enough houses are being built and more people are being born and need a place to live?
Mm-hmm.
Rents go up.
Yep. Investing.
So there's always an answer. There's always an opportunity, but you got to look for it. So for me, what do I expect? I expect that not everybody's going to want to go on the journey with me. And that's okay. I expect that some people are going to be okay making less money this year. And who am I to judge to say that's wrong? I expect that there will be people who see this as a massive opportunity and actually make more money this year than they did last year. But what I would say is, and because Gary made this statement, I think it's really true. People may have to look at their personal finances even more than their business finances, because you've had your lifestyle go up like this the last couple of years, and now the number of houses you sold has come down, and there's a reckoning there with your personal finances. And that's not, like Denny said, it's not everybody's gig. Numbers are not everybody's gig, but if they're not, find somebody who it is. And, I wrote down a couple of ideas coming out of Gary's mastermind yesterday that maybe once a month I want to have, an event at my house, just, for like an hour and a half for anybody in my world that wants to talk about, whatever the hottest topic is. Is it personal finances? Is it, how to go out and take advantage of 72 sold, or just, whatever it is, because people are going to need our help to get through this. It's because you have to remember 90% of the realtors have never been through what we're going to go through. And they don't realize how much pain can be inflicted upon you out of your control.
You guys, so no one shoots one another.
So that's kind of what I expect. When all of my team leaders, I told them all, create your budget for 2023 based on a reduction in closed sales by 15% over this year. And I said, we can always adjust at the mid-year budget review, but I'd rather forecast and under promise and over deliver. And I said, but here's the thing. I want you to think of what we need to do to make up the gap in that 10 to 15% that's probably would be the gap if we don't do something different. And their answer was 72 sold. So that's one of the ways that we can make up for the gap in the market that we can't control, because that we can control.
So I think that was golden, Kristan, for people that maybe don't have access to that, but looking at, and what I heard James say was, like, to go back to the question of projecting, or as Denny said, anticipating, like James is anticipating December, January, maybe even February, not going to be very pretty, but then we're going to start to look up. So it's just watching closely. And Kristan's saying, let's look at 5 years, because the average of 5 years is going to look much better. But to get super specific, and I love this where you ended, Kristan, if I project I'm going to be 15% lower, what needs to happen so my profitability remains the same?
That's right.
If we're looking at our home and I project I'm going to make 20% less this year, what needs to happen today so that I'm not scrambling? And I think, we can project however we want. There's no judgment on that, but how do you project so that you're winning with whatever that is? Because it starts with the projection of income increase or loss or average, but it's going to show up in the dollars in your bank account.
You could choose to cut your personal financial
Sure.
budget. There's a lot of choices you can make, but to be paralyzed and do nothing, then you're going to allow it to happen to you.
Yes.
So
for you.
yeah. And
It's
I think there's going to be
tough.
a lot of opportunity out there too.
And I'm gonna jump back really quickly, because skills is a word we're using a lot. Like everybody says, it's a skill-based business. It's a skill-based business. And James, you dialed down a little bit on the specific skills you guys are focused on, which is mortgage hacks. Like, what's our skill around helping people get the mortgage that they need to accomplish their goals? And the other one being, I like to call it that you're the deal doctor, right? Like you put two deals back together, and our negotiation skills and our ability to keep deals together. Those are two skills. This is a sideball, guys, sorry, but what other skills, if you could say, these are the skills that I am like honing at a high level right now, what are they?
Well, you kind of touched on negotiating. I'm sure Denny can speak better to that than certainly I can. However, I feel that the specific deals that I was talking about were deals where offers had been made, and the party buying is always afraid they're overpaying when a market's shifting. The party selling is always still thinking their house is worth more, and helping them to see the light that both of you can win in this situation. One thing that became very clear with the group that Kristan and I were in is, just because you're not getting what you could have gotten 4 or 5 months ago doesn't mean you're not still winning in a big way. The folks that I just worked this deal out, they were still making $180,000 on their house. And oh, by the way, I sold that house to them 18 months ago. Not 10 years ago, 18 months ago. And what was keeping this deal apart was $5,000. So let's use some common sense here. You've already got where you want to go. You're going to lose it to a higher rate, by 2 or 3 points if you don't get this worked out. Is that worth $5,000 today? Yes, it is. So it's literally just learning what conversations are important to have and what are not, because some of the things we maybe used to talk about that we thought were important are not. Kristan touched on, I can't read that, Kristan.
It says top buyer conversations for right now.
Yes.
Yep.
Having those right conversations, those right structures of what you're talking about at the given moment. One of the things that Gary was talking about were the 3 levers to use right now. One of those was time on task, which is exactly what we're talking about. Talking to more people. Don't talk to the same amount of people. You're going to have to spend more time on the task. And then target rich areas of business, which to me means target rich areas of opportunity. What are they? It's different where Denny's at. It's different where Kristan's at. It's different where I'm at. It's different where everyone's at. What are those opportunity areas for business for you? It may be FSBOs. That may be the people that you need to be striking where you're at. I can tell you, most of those people in my area don't know that it's a little rougher right now.
Mhm.
They're going to figure it out really quick because their friends sold, 6 months ago, 8 months ago. Everything was wonderful. Which leads to the third thing Gary said, which is be sending the message of the moment. And that word moment is very important because, once again, I alluded to it once already. It's different all the time. It changes all the time. Denny's got graphs right behind him, and I can't tell whether those are months or days, but they could be days. Rates change every single day, and it doesn't matter. Let's talk sense in the
Well,
situation.
let's think about this. Back in January, our message was, want to sell your house, but don't know where you would go, call us, we have a solution, right?
Mhm.
Today it's, if I could find you a home that just got qualified for a 2% lower interest rate, would you be interested in seeing it? That's what you're talking about, James, is what is the message of the moment to get people moving towards you and to put deals together. But you've got to be the person that can explain how this works. And, and Shana, I'm going to get this to you so you can get it to all of our clients. But these are all the top objection handlers right now. And the conversations in this, this 6 or 7 pages are brilliant. I mean, that's the type of thing that's in here. It's like when they say this, what do you say? When they say the interest rate is, they're not comfortable, what do you say? So I love that, because it's all about the people that can put together the right conversations and help people make and have perspective to help them make the right decisions. That's who's going to win.
Right. And it's not, and I think that's key. It's like the right decisions for them. It's not the right decision for everyone to buy right now. But
Right.
getting in front, being the person in that conversation to help guide them there. And that's just about being in conversation.
Someone had said, they don't know what a 2-1 buy down is. And most agents did not know that as well. However, how can you phrase that? I had one of my lenders, and I loved what he said, because I thought that's a flyer, right? And his flyer was, or his statement was, how would you like to get next year's rate today? And what he's really talking about is a 2-1 buy down, right?
Exactly.
Because we know rates are going down. I asked that question, it gives me a great opportunity to explain the answer. This is how we do that. And the sellers are willing to participate to help you get there.
So
Right.
James, I'm going to test you for everyone here who doesn't know what a 2-1 buy down is, because apparently there's a lot, but I just learned about it recently. What's a 2-1 buy down?
Well, we'll just take the rate as it's 7%.
Okay.
A 2-1 buy down is dependent upon whom the lender is. It could be a different amount that gets you there, but you pay a certain amount of points, a certain amount up front. 2.5 points seems to be what I'm hearing average on whatever that loan amount is. That will take the initial rate from a 7% rate to a 5% rate. It will stay at 5% for 1 year. The second year it will change to 6%. And the third year it would actually go to the note rate, which is 7%. What that does is it buys you time to look at refinancing that vehicle into a different vehicle, right? So what you're really doing is whoever is paying that, which it has to be the seller, has to be the builder, whomever it is you're working with, they're prepaying the interest. That's all they're doing. It's prepaid
Right.
interest on their side of
Right.
it. And you're the beneficiary of that. And it gets you in the house today when you're not competing against 10 offers that you're going to be competing against a year from now, when we're right back to even lower inventory and potentially higher prices.
Right. And I think there's some lenders that are also offering free refis. If it's
Sure.
within that 2 years, you can refinance for free. And then the seller gets that prepaid interest, if you will, back, I believe is what I'm understanding. With
It is.
some-
No.
All
It goes to their note balance, whatever it
Sure.
is.
Okay.
Goes to pay off the principal on the buyer's note.
Yep. So that money's not lost, which I think is awesome. And then, Denny, I don't want to miss you on this skill. We talk about skills. What skill do you think, what's one of the skills that you're learning and leading to right now?
Well, I'll start with mindset. I mean, if an agent right now thinks it's a bad time to buy, therefore that's what they project to people, it's a bad time to buy, you need to change your mindset. You got to remember, if they're renting, their interest rate is 100%. So 7% is cheaper. So don't buy into the fact that it's a bad time to buy. You don't have your stinking thinking. That's number one. The next thing is what Michael was saying with his, and Kristan brought up the conversations, is practice. I am shocked as I teach bold, how many people do not practice daily. And, if you wanted to get good at something, we had a baseball player in our class this past week in Michigan, and he would literally practice 8 hours a day. He was a shortstop, and he would have to practice his grounders. He had to practice throwing. He had to practice his batting, all the different skills, and he had to do it every day. Agents aren't even practicing 15 minutes. So you should get that booklet that Kristan has and basically look at those conversations. I have for the last 2 years been having a class on conversations. People don't make the calls because they don't know who to call. They don't know what to say. Well, at least understand how to have the conversation. And that's Friday, tomorrow, 1 to 2 Eastern. If you want to know, just send me an email at denny@dennygrimes.com. I've got a YouTube channel with 100 videos on practicing the conversations. Because whatever a buyer or seller says, I don't want to sell, I don't want to buy for whatever reason, that's the picture in their mind. Can you ask them questions to help them see what they're not seeing, which is the picture in your mind? And you know what?
Right.
Some will go forward, some won't. It doesn't matter, because the bottom line is if you follow up with these people, they will be your clients when they're ready.
Right. And that's that skill. That skill is what's going to get them to buy into you and follow you and listen to you, whether they choose it's the right time for them to buy and sell today or in 5 years. But it's that skill that we show them today through practice, through understanding how to have a conversation, through asking questions and guiding them, that will get them into our world when they are ready.
Right.
Okay. One last question, and then there's an interesting thing in the chat box that I want to get to. What are you, the three of you, doing right now to protect your mindset and your confidence?
Well, I think probably for the three of us on this call, it's pretty easy because we've been through this. I've been through it 7 times. So it's, so it doesn't, I know every single time there were opportunities that showed up because I just stayed in the game. And so I'd say, just stay in the game and trust me that if you stay in the game, fully engaged, immersed, if you will, there will be opportunities show up, and you'll be like, wow, I would have never seen this coming. And I can guarantee you that will happen. Yeah, you're probably going to have to spend more time on learning your, skills and conversations so that you can put buyers and sellers together that need and want to sell and buy right now. But I would just say, don't be afraid of it. Borrow on our belief, because, everyone on this call has been through this, not once, not twice, not 3 times, multiple times. And we can tell you the winners are the people that stay in the game and immerse themselves in learning every week. What's the conversation I need to have this week? How is it different than last week? Just because the Fed changed the interest rate. So you have to be willing to stay in the game.
Change equals opportunity. Kristan's 100% right. The change is just giving us the opportunity. Today, the change is the interest rate. Today's the change in the market. Today's the change of we don't have enough inventory. There is something that was said the past couple of days in Austin, and that was that NAR is projecting that 50% of the agents will wash out in this next year. So I want you to think of that. 50% of the agents are gone. Do you think 50% of the business is gone?
No.
Even if it's not where we want it to be, it'll easily be 70 or 75% of what it should be, which means you've got a game. And the opportunities there, are you willing to hang around for it? I commend everybody that's on this call, because they're at least looking, they're seeking, they're doing what I was talking about. I'm going to people that are doing things that I don't know or understand to help them explain it to me so I can explain it to everybody else. Right. Mm-hmm. That's why I love these type of settings, because I'm definitely the dumbest person out of the 4 people on the screen I'm looking at. Right. So I want to learn, and I want to, even though that quantitative easing doesn't make sense, what it does make sense is I walked out of that office knowing it was even better than I thought it was going to be, opportunity wise. So I want everyone to believe you can't get listings. I want everyone to believe you can't do that, because the people I talk to are going to know different. And the agents I talk to, when I walked into this office this morning, I had a call from one of my agents telling me that another company small company is going completely out of business at the end of the year. And I already have 2 of those people set up to meet with me in the morning, right? Opportunity. It would not happen if things didn't get hard. So embrace the hard. That's all I'm saying. Opportunity.
Yeah. Embrace the suck. Somebody told me that one time. I actually wrote it down. It's like-
Gary said, be aware. Don't be scared. Be aware. Don't be scared. That's the truth.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Denny, talk to me about your mindset besides humor.
Yeah. I get whacked out when people don't laugh at my jokes. So I guess my mind has been for a long time, I'm a marcher, and I don't even quite understand people who get whacked out over things that you can't control. You really can't control all the stuff. And so I like football. I like analogies, and some of you guys won't know this. However, Tom Brady had 40 some seconds, no timeouts, hadn't scored a touchdown like in almost a year. And he goes down there, cool as a cucumber, and scores with about 9 seconds left to win the game. How did he do that? He's been there before. And the bottom line is, based on the graph that Kristan showed us, we call it the 4% graph. Why are you worried? It's impossible to fail at real estate. You can only quit. And in the end, we know the market's going to change and come back, and we're going to be stronger for it. So just for me, I put my boots on every day and I go out and march. My highs aren't that high. My lows aren't very low, because I know how it ends.
I love that. Making so many notes.
I love that too. It's like the other day, Denny and I were rewatching the end of that football game, and I wasn't nervous because I know how it ends. That's exactly what Denny's saying right now. No, the 3 of us, the 4 of us aren't nervous because we know how it ends. We've been here before. We know how it ends.
When, we just know how. Right, Kristan?
Yeah.
So we have just a few minutes left, and I was encouraging people to use the chat box. And there's one question in the chat that I thought this could be fun for the 3 of us. And it's just down and dirty in the trenches. And we talked about skill set being deal doctors, bulletproofing transactions, negotiations, whatever you want to call it. But I hadn't heard of this, and it's very real. A team leader somewhere in Washington State talked about several transactions falling out because the mortgage companies were closing.
Mm.
So obviously, if a mortgage company closes, there's no loan, the deal falls apart. My question is, that's a symptom of the problem. How do we, if we were to say this is a real problem in our marketplace, potentially that this mortgage company could close, because if you listen to Housing Wire, Kristan, one of our favorite podcasts every day, like that's happening a lot. And so how do we start to work in our transactions to maybe bulletproof that in case it ever, like, how could we take that, just for everybody on this call, if that's going to be an issue moving forward, how do we protect against that before it becomes a problem?
Well, this is a smart butt answer, but in Arizona, you own a mortgage company, and then you don't have to worry about it. Other than that, it's no different than in real estate. In real estate, when things get hard, everybody goes to as James and I were talking the last couple of days, the safe harbor. Right? You go to the people that have been in business, that are going to be in business tomorrow. If you look at some of those mortgage companies that have closed, and we were talking about this at dinner the other night, it's mortgage companies that were doing 75% of their business was refis.
Mm-hmm.
So, go with a company that's do purchases that have a tried and true track record, that has a reputation, and isn't that exactly what buyers and sellers do, especially sellers? When the market gets tough, they go to the experience, the people that are tried and true. It's the same thing. Don't go with some fly-by-nighter.
Do you remember there was a time when in my marketplace that I worked in, there was a time when there was a lot of non-local lenders, and we would say, like, if you brought us a 90% from a non-local lender, we would say, we need a second pre-qual,
right?
A local lender. And it almost seems to me like, if it's like what you're saying, Kristan, and I want to hear Denny and James, I want to hear what you think. If it's not a lender that you're completely comfortable with is going to be in business in a year, getting a second pre-qual from another lender, maybe to, get ahead of a problem, solve problems before they come problems. Maybe it's we all agree that this lender will take over the transaction so that we don't have an automatic fallout.
Yeah. I'll just say, when you look across the mortgage companies that have been doing primarily purchases, they're doing well. Movement Mortgage is doing well. Intraland Arizona is doing well because we do purchases. That's our main source of business. So if you don't that's such a great hack. It's like, if you don't recognize the company, I remember, back in the day in Alaska, when we would get, all of a sudden we were getting pre-crawls from like, Home Depot or whatever. Just we never heard of them, and they're in the lower 48 and we didn't trust them. So we would require a second pre-qual. You're exactly right, Shana. It's like, give me another one in case this one goes bad.
Yeah.
The last major downturn, which is obviously the mortgage meltdown for me, we had our trusted lenders, and then you always have those lenders that people just bring you and they insist on using. I had my lenders, literally, they were the hero of the day because they came in and closed deals in 3 to 5 days with the existing appraisal, the existing documentation. That's what happens when you have relationships with strong people.
Yeah.
They step up to the plate and they hit the home run for you when you need it, when you got to win the game. When Tom Brady has to score a touchdown, he makes it happen. Whatever it is, they made it happen then, and you have to have those relationships today to bail you out of those messes like that sometimes we don't get ourselves into, but our clients get ourselves into.
Yeah, very true.
And go to it's where all of our consumers are going to run. They're going to run to Kristan. They're going to run to Denny because they know they've seasoned this. Their cousin does have their license, but they're letting it go at the end of the year. And they would have listed it when it was easy, but now it's not. They need a professional.
Denny.
Well, if Kristan can have a smart butt answer, then I'll give you a smart butt answer too. So I don't even know why, and I don't want to make anyone feel bad for asking the question. There's no bad questions. I don't know why people would focus on such a minor thing like that. If you get laser focused on the end zone, not to overuse our football analogies, it doesn't matter if the beer vendor's out of light beer. You have a business that's closing, James, in your town you just mentioned. I don't want to, betray any confidence, but do they make something or they provide something, a service or a product?
And what I was speaking of is a real estate company.
All right, well then that's the same thing. I mean, when you've got a buyer that wants something, you're bulletproof. It doesn't matter if the lender goes out of business. You'll find another lender. It doesn't matter if home inspectors go out of business. You will work the transaction. I guess probably to put a bow in it for us, we just have to be talking to enough people to have motivated buyers that will work through the fact that the beer man's out of light beer and not just quit. And that means you got to talk to more people, have better conversations, and have a pipeline.
And have great relationships, like James said. You've got your go-to people that can help bail you out.
Because there's a couple different scenarios in that, and we'll wrap that up quickly, but it could be the buyer actually wants out of the transaction. So now we have a seller who's got a listing that's in a completely different marketplace. And so how are we protecting all parties when that's a very real thing, right? If you're a buyer that pre-qualified, interest rates are gone up 1%, and now your lender's out of business, you have an out on the contract and your seller's not protected. And I just think it was a great question. And I thought it was worth conversation with the group.
That's what great agents do. They figure it out and they bulletproof the transaction, and they have backups to the backups to the backups.
Skill. Back to that skill. Okay, so I want to be respectful of your guys' time specifically. I appreciate all of you so much. I know how many things there are that we can and should be doing. So I love that we can all get together and collaborate and share a lot of wisdom. I'm hoping that we can do this again. I'm going to check with everyone in early to mid-January. I want to get through the holidays and allow everybody to enjoy. And then I'd love to come back in early to mid-January and see what's happening and what we're learning and what we're doing, because this wisdom is incredible. Maybe it'll be a day after the three of you just spend at a mastermind and we can get all these nuggets in all this energy again. That was just happenstance that happened. Any closing thoughts before we leave, before the end of the year?
Yeah, Kristan, I think just invited everybody over to her house to have a conversation. So I
I'm
think we should
coming.
talk on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Alaska to Arizona, I'm there.
What I would say is that, you know, you need to be getting together with your people, with other realtors more often, not less often, because it's changing so fast that if you want to be in the game, if you want to be able to march however many yards in 47 seconds, you know, you need the playbook, right? You just happen to know people that are in Gary's room that can get you the playbook. You know, you're looking at James, myself, Denny, all of us get to be in Gary's room. And we're going to share this playbook with Shana. And you should look at section 5 and 6. Section 5 are mortgage hacks, and section 6 are all the conversations around the mortgage hacks. This one little thing, this one little nugget, and we're super grateful because Gary's the one that gave it to us. It's worth the hour being on the call just to have access to this information. And we're just a conduit of it. We're happy to be that. You know, next week, Shana, we're doing the growth word GSO event here in Scottsdale in person. If you still want to come, I highly recommend you do. It's all day Wednesday and Thursday, but we're gonna have stuff like this. It's not gonna be airy fairy up here strategic in the sky. It's gonna be very much hand-to-hand combat. What do we do? What do we say? What's the plan? How do we get ready for 2023 so that we don't go backwards and we get prepared to take more territory? And Tegan, and maybe you could type in the chat box if somebody does want to come. You know, I know it's kind of late notice, but hey, we'll make it happen if you want to come.
James, close us out, friend.
I saw that Patrick had put on their reverse offers are back, right? And what that really makes me think about is creativity. This actually, we're all entrepreneurs, and it kind of gives us that opportunity to be a little bit creative. One of those 2 deals, Patrick, that I was talking about, we did a reverse offer to somebody that looked at the house, right? They didn't make an offer. We sucked them back in, and it was a very nice house. So they do work. Get creative, have some fun, because as Denny, you know, is joking around, this is way too serious all the time, right? Build some great relationships, be creative, do the hard things, and honestly, you're going to be so much better off 6 months down the road. I really believe 6 months down the road is going to look different for us. We're looking casting 5 years down, but hey, it'll be better than today. I can assure you, 6 months from today. So just work hard at it.
Awesome. I appreciate all of you. I love you guys. Happy holidays. And we'll see you in early January.
Thank you, Shana.
Actually, I'll see you next week, Kristan.
Nice job.
Bye, guys. Thank you.